If you are an existing or perhaps an aspiring music tour manager, then you should probably be pretty well acquainted with all of the skills I mentioned in this video. If not, then being a TM might not be the best fit for you. I've been a music tour manager for the past 5 or so years, and I come from about 12 years of event production for music festivals, theaters, and other types of various touring band entities. And I've seen the good and the bad TMs. And trust me when I say that if you want to be one of the good TMs, then you need to be very well acquainted with all of these skills that I mentioned in this video. Now, a quick plug, I do have an introduction to music touring guide on the Final Advance website, which is linked in the info section below this video, as well as a TM after action report that every tour manager should be utilizing in some capacity after literally every single show. So definitely be sure to go check those out. If you have questions throughout this video, please put them down in the comments. I will be responding there. Make sure to stay until the end of this video. I will share a tour manager skill that not a lot of TMs initially understand or grasp the importance of, but it makes a huge difference when you're out on the road managing your bands. And lastly, if you do want to get on the road as a tour manager or in a touring role, I am currently accepting and looking for interns to bring out on various touring dates and different gigs. It's also on the Final Advance website, so go check that out while the offer lasts. So the first essential skill that all tour managers need to be extremely competent in is creating day sheets and managing schedules, time management for their entire team and for the entire team's visibility. If you've ever been involved in a touring day, there's a lot of moving pieces that goes into it. There's a lot of people on a tour, in the crew, in the band, also on the promoter side, and a lot of moving pieces, a lot of obstacles that have to be overcome, a lot of things that need to be built, a lot of things that have to be fine-tuned, and everyone is moving in their own respective worlds. As a tour manager, it's your job to orchestrate that entire operation of the day. It's kind of like being a conductor of an orchestra. You have to know exactly what part everyone is playing and at what time they're supposed to be playing those parts. Now, this does not mean to micromanage, but it does mean getting ahead of the schedule and making sure that you allocate enough time for everyone on your team to do the things that they need to do, and specifically making sure they have enough time to do the things that need to be done. It's basically impossible to show up for a show date, for a tour date, and not have a pre-existing schedule already in place. If you do that, you're setting yourself and your entire team and the entire show up for failure. The production manager needs a certain amount of time on stage with the hands, with the builders, with the riggers. Merch needs enough time to get all of their stuff set up. Your front of house, your monitor techs are gonna need time to tune things. They're gonna need time to work with the house audio, with the A1. They're gonna need time to run all of their snakes, their SDI lines, their Cat 5 lines. Your guitar and your drum techs are gonna need time to work with their instruments. And depending on the rooms you play, a lot of these roles can conflict with each other if they're not strategically thought ahead. Now, I could do an entire video about how a show day should be structured, but hopefully as a tour manager existing, or maybe if you are looking into becoming a tour manager, you can at least go and start to get acquainted with the different types of roles on your tour and what allocations they need to perform their roles in a timely manner. Basically, as a tour manager, you need to be able to clearly and efficiently communicate your day schedules to the entire team as well as to the promoter. The second essential skill for all tour managers is to have friendly but firm communication skills for your crew, for the promoters, and for the various bands involved on a bill. As a tour manager, you are essentially the leader of the tour, and sometimes being the leader means you have to lay down the law. But of course, you don't want to be a dick when you do that. You can't be harsh or cruel in your leadership position, but you have to know how to communicate clearly and effectively. And it takes a lot of soft skills, something that people learn over time. It may come more naturally to some, but nobody's perfect at it, and you have to just practice and practice and practice it. This is especially true when dealing with promoters or buyers or anyone from the venue side of things. As a tour manager, you have to be completely honest and transparent when communicating important issues with your promoter or with the venues that you're working with. At the end of the day, everything comes to light. Everything will come to light one way or another, whether it's from finance, from production, from staffing, labor, whatever it is. If it's not communicated clearly and efficiently ahead of time, it's going to lead to all kinds of confusions and possibly issues down the road. I've known TMs that were too timid to bring up delays in their schedules to the promoters. They didn't tell them that they needed more time for doors because of some major production issue that they had to overcome with their crew. Then the promoter doesn't know this. They go to open doors and suddenly there's, all this production equipment that's a hazard to folks in the venue, and they have to then come back to the band and be like, guys, what's going on? And because there wasn't that communication, now suddenly there's all kinds of mixed emotions in the air. There's all kinds of staffing hour issues. There's all kinds of production delay issues. We have to get messages out to ticket holders because of delays. All of these things can really escalate the negative experience for the tour, for the patrons, and for the venue. And as a tour manager, it's your job to oversee all of this clear communication well ahead of time. The third essential skill that all tour managers need to have, especially as you begin touring internationally, is you need to learn and know how to deal with international visas, any kind of travel documentations, carnets, exemption letters, etc. Basically, if you're with a band that is traveling internationally, you need to be extremely well acquainted with the different rules and regulations of performing in other countries. Usually it comes down to a matter of finances or money topics, specifically like where are you earning your money from? Who is paying you that money to perform or to be in that country for that show? How is the taxation working on that? Most governments want or need to know where that money is going so that they can tax the right people accordingly. But it's also the same thing with gear. If you've ever traveled internationally with backline, you have probably come across the requirements of a carnet, of having a document, a manifest that tracks all of the equipment that you're importing in and out of the country. They do this for several reasons. One of the most important reasons is to track and to mitigate against any kind of reselling of equipment. They want to know that what you bring into a country is what you're also bringing out, and that you're not coming there just to sell it, to take advantage of their economical condition. There are other variables and factors for why carnets are important, but that's just one that, like, for example, the Canada-US border could potentially have questions about. And yes, I know there is a fair trade agreement between the US and Canada, but depending on your officer that you work with at the border, some of them may not be as privy to that somewhat recent change, so they may be questioning you about this. Exemption letters are pretty straightforward. If you are tour managing, for example, a DJ, and you're flying to a different country for a gig, an exemption letter comes from the promoter or the buyer that that yourself and your DJ and any traveling crew would present to the customs officers that says, hey, I, as the promoter, am inviting these artists to perform in the country. Here is how I'm handling their payments or their taxation, whether they pay it or it needs to be deducted from settlement. Sometimes with an artist management, you may have some sort of exemption letters from their local financial institutions, depending on how they do their banking. There's all kinds of complexities here, and no one band is the same. So it's very important that you as a tour manager are up to date with exactly what your band needs to have prepared for international travel. And lastly, of course, the visas. Depending on which country you're going to, how long you're going to that country, and how you're expected to get paid, again, which entity is paying you, visas could be the requirement for you and your touring party. And visas take time. They can be expensive and they take time to create. There are some institutions that can do it much quicker or faster than others. But in general, again, you need to just be on top of understanding what requirements you are obligated to with your band when traveling internationally. The fourth essential skill that all tour managers really need to have is to have a clean reputation in order to enforce respect and authority, especially as a touring party grows. It's kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier in regards to the friendly but firm communication. But this is more so focused on having a clean reputation as a leader, meaning you're not somebody that parties or drinks every night or does drugs on the bus. This is somebody, you as a TM, who is sort of like the, I don't necessarily want to say dad figure, but being somebody that is the adult in the room. Because again, you're dealing with bands, you're dealing with crews who maybe are out here for fun, for a good time, and sometimes that's okay, but you as a tour manager need to always be focused on the primary objective, which is completing the tour successfully, executing every show successfully to its maximum possible efficiency. I have personally seen many tour managers fall off because they did not take this advice to mind. They partied every night, they got drunk, they missed their own bus calls. Like it's embarrassing, and it tears apart the group because it doesn't instill any sense of authority. It lets everyone feel like they can do whatever they want, which everyone's an adult, probably on the road, hopefully. But even then, you need to set a standard. You are the role model for the tour. That's just the nature of the role. I take my role as a tour manager very seriously. It's like my career. It's like if you love your job, you probably aren't going to do stupid shit that messes it up. You're not going to show up to work drunk. You're not going to go out and bang your coworker. You're going to treat the job professionally and effectively because you want to keep your job and you want to make sure that the tour, in this case, succeeds. Especially as a touring team grows and as you have more and more people. Like if you have a 6-bus tour with 4 semi-trucks, like that's 40 to 60 people that you're touring with. You cannot afford to be a bad role model. Like you're traveling with a city. It's like being a mayor. And I know that the government maybe isn't a good example of that because a lot of them are shitheads. But in general, like don't be like that. Be responsible, be the leader that you need to be. Okay, and lastly, the final, somewhat like secret or lesser known essential skill that all tour managers need to have, and I learned this from experience. I didn't know this right away. I kind of guessed at it, but I didn't guess the importance of it, is the skill of balancing the artist and management relationship. I've said this before in other videos, but being the tour manager, you are like the eyes and the ears and the middleman on the road between the band / the tour and the management company, the managers that manage the artist day to day. They're not usually on the tour, so they don't get to see every single show. They don't get to see how the artist is late at night or early in the morning, right? But you, as a tour manager, are very close to that environment. Likewise, the artist doesn't always see what the management does, but you as a tour manager are probably communicating with management somewhat regularly, and you do have that insight. Sometimes management will ask artists to do things that you as a tour manager know are not possible because of like time constraints. For example, management may try to throw a bunch of like meet and greets and guitar signings at the artist's schedule, but you as the tour manager can see that, well, we arrive at this certain hour, there's not nearly enough time in our day to do this. Maybe it's not the best idea because it's going to take away from the artist's ability to prepare for the set. You as the tour manager have the ability to enforce that sort of pushback onto management with the artist's support. Likewise, sometimes the artist may ask management to do something that management can't do because they're dealing with something on the back end that maybe the artist doesn't understand. Again, as a tour manager, you are balancing that relationship between them. And honestly, like as much as some people think that they're not gonna have to deal with that, every tour manager I know finds themselves somehow in this middle situation or relationship between management and the artist. So it's less of a conversation of if it'll happen, it's more of a conversation of when it will happen and what you can do to prepare for it. And it's not always like a bad thing. Like sometimes you just have to be involved in these conversations just to kind of set the playing field fairly for both sides. My opinion for how to handle those situations really is to just always have like a baseline level with both sides, with management and with artists. You never want to talk badly about the other because there's really nothing bad to talk about. You are there to create solutions, not to create more problems. So don't sell either side out. but rather support the views of both sides and then try to come up with a fair solution to whatever the conversation or maybe problem is. Because remember, both sides can fire you. Both sides have the ability to pull the plug on your contract. Or if you're salary, they can, decide to fire you, whatever. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Those are just a few essential tips that all tour managers need to have. There's a lot of other intricacies that go into the tour management role that I could talk about for hours, which if you want to hear more about what I have to say, follow me on TikTok. I do live streams occasionally where I answer any questions you guys have. Likewise, if you have questions about this video or about tour managing or about anything else I mentioned, please put it in the comments below. I will be responding there. Definitely recommend checking out the Final Advance website, also linked below, if you want to learn more about how to get on the road with me in a touring position. If you want to check out the after action report that I think all tour managers need to use, there is a link on the website for that. And I also do have an introduction to touring guide. It's like a full-fledged course about how to get into the touring world. And my last little plug is I do have a tour life YouTube channel. It's called No Way Home. It's where I show all of my behind the scenes of being on the road with bands, but also at music events and festivals that I work at. So definitely go check that out if you guys want to see some of that. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate all the support. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video, or hopefully on the road soon. Cheers.